person goes through 3 stages. Starts mid to high, goes low, and then goes back high. Now let me ask you a question. Of these 3 stages, there's 3 different times in life. Again, there's exceptions and variations, but think of yourself, the rule is very strong, it's very common, right? Think of this. Which of these 3 stages is the time when we choose who we're going to marry?
Lower one.
Amazingly ironic. We choose our spouses, our husband or wife, at what is, from a cultural, religious, nationality, identity perspective, the single worst time to make that decision. Meaning, if theoretically, I know it's crazy, but if theoretically people were deciding it when they were 12, bar mitzvah, it's obvious, a big part of my life, I want to share this. If they were making this decision when they're already settled down as kids, I know for most of us that's not going to be the case, but I know that this is a big part of my life, I care about this. But people don't make it. They make the decision when they're in their 20s. People often ask me, why do you make such a big deal about interfaith dating and marriage? I've been dating this girl for 2 years. We live together. We're fine. We have no problems. You know what my answer is? You're 25. You're 27. You're 22. Obviously, you wouldn't have any problems, any challenges, because that all happens later in life. Unless you're like really religious, like there's not going to be any big issues right now. What we've just done is what I think a crucial point of understanding. Whether this is something you're dealing with as a young person, making a decision yourself, or whether you are a parent or a grandparent and you want to help your family, or just spread the word to others. This is what I think the central point. We started out talking about the Muslim and the Catholic example, to just religious people. And the conclusion there was, if you are very observant, religious, very, very involved, it's obvious you're going to want to marry somebody in the same religion, because it's a big part of who you are, a big part of your life. What we've now discussed is that even for people who are not, even for people where being Jewish is a relatively small part of who they are, who you marry matters. Because how a person feels and how active they are in their religion, culture, heritage changes drastically as they go through life, and especially when they settle down and have kids. Meaning no matter who you are, no matter how active or observant you are or you aren't, who you marry matters. Until now, by the way, if you noticed, I haven't actually said why. I want to now give you 2 universal reasons why I encourage people to marry in the same religion. Whether they are 2 Catholics, 2 Protestants, 2 Muslims, or 2 Jews. 2 universal reasons why it's better to marry in the same religion. So, let me explain it like this. I'll sing some words to a song, you do the music. All you need is love. Never fails. Beatles were amazing, right? So I don't know if you like the Beatles music, you didn't like the Beatles music. I grew up with the Beatles music. I love the Beatles music. I could probably sing to you every word of every song. I won't do it in a terrible voice. Don't worry, you can bring me for that. So people think that because I speak I can sing. No, it's completely different. You know? So it's a beautiful song. All you need is love. Love is all you need. And it's not just beautiful because it's nice music. The words are also very appealing. It's very romantic. We like to all you need is love. Love conquers all. Love will be stronger. We've heard all these phrases, right? So I want us to forget about Jews for a minute. Imagine 2 Christians in a church about to get married. They're walking down the aisle, the priest is in the front, music is playing, do, 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 do. I'm about to marry this person in 2 minutes. Are we in love? Do I love them? I mean, I hope so. 99% of the time, 100% of the time. I was speaking at the University of Virginia once in the United States, and I asked this question, and a student in the back, very angry look on his face, he said, 10% maximum. I was like, whoa, we gotta talk. I mean, presumably, people are in love enough to get married, right? What's the divorce rate today? It's 50% in almost every Western country except the Vatican. But it's 50%, right? Most people have heard that number. 50% of marriages roughly end in divorce. Do you know how long it takes for a typical divorce to happen?
2 years.
Not quite, not that bad. 5. It used to be called 7-year itch, now it's 5. Meaning, there are people who get divorced after 20 years. It's sad, it's rare, it doesn't happen that often. Usually, divorces are pretty fast. Think about that. Only 3, 4, 5 years ago, they were in love enough to get married, right? Everybody's in love when they get married. And 3, 4, 5 years later, there's already a huge divorce rate, and by the way, we all know that not all the rest of the marriages are necessarily so happy. So what happens? Well, there's a lot of reasons why people get divorced. You could write books about it, you could read books about it, you could do a PhD on it. I mean, it's a huge subject. Any library, any bookstore is huge. I want to summarize all of the research on why people get divorced. I'm going to save you months or years of research. I'm going to explain to you exactly why people get divorced. You can take notes on this. People get divorced because the Beatles were wrong. They were great musicians, some of the greatest musicians of the 20th century, certainly Paul and John. Even George Harrison proved himself at the end when he went solo. Ringo Starr, I'm not so sure. If you like him, okay. But, by the way, music, yes. Marital advice, I'm not so sure. By the way, I Googled that each and every one of the Beatles was divorced at least once. So be careful where you get your advice from. Meaning all you need is love is true when you're dating. Maybe the first year or two of marriage. But it's not enough for marriage. Love is beautiful, love is wonderful. It's that special chemistry, it makes it all work. It's beautiful, you'll have it, you will have it, you should have it. But it's not enough. And the divorce rate proves it. They all had love. So what else do you need? Well, some of the things are obvious. We know this.
Patience.
Trust, communication, right? Understanding, honesty. All these things are obvious, right? There's one thing that is not obvious, that is not talked about in the popular psychology books and marriage books, and it's what I call practical compatibility. How compatible, how fitting are we for each other? Are we on the same page? Are we going in the same direction? Is this where we're going to end up in the same place? I'll give you a few examples of this, okay? Imagine that you had a couple, and you want to set them up on a blind date. Forget about Jews, nothing, just two, same, everything. There's good chemistry, and you think there'd be good chemistry, and they work out. And there's only one thing. The thing is, I'll choose a stereotype of gender, but you could flip it male and female, just do gender. Let's say she loved being a child. She loves children. She can't wait to be a mother. It's one of her goals in life. He hated being a child. He hates children. Never wants to have children. Plans on going to the doctor's office to make sure he never actually has children. Could this couple fall in love?
Yes.
Are they destined to have a good marriage?
No.
Love and success in marriage, that's a big thing. That's going to be, I'll give you another example. I knew a couple, it was they met in medical school. I don't know how medical school is in Mexico. In the United States, very intense. They hardly ever leave, so they end up dating each other, right, with medical students, because they don't leave the building very much. They're there for 12, 14 hours a day, whatever it is. So this couple meets in medical school, they're together, they're in love for a couple of years. And when they're graduating, looking towards residency in the next post, they realize they have a big problem. You see, he came from a very wealthy family. His mother was a doctor, his father was a doctor, his grandparents are doctors. He grew up very rich, privileged. And what does he want to do? He has this kind of guilt about him. It doesn't have to be, he does. Where he wants to graduate medical school, and he wants to go to some poor community in the third world and help people and help save their lives and give back. Right? Very beautiful, noble thing to do. She grew up in a very poor family. She went to bed hungry at night. Never knew her father and mother struggled. Scholarships for herself through school. And she wants to help people. She's a good person. But one of her main goals for being a doctor is to give her family everything she didn't have. She wants her family to have her kids have a nice house, to go to good schools. So they come from different places. They meet in medical school where all that doesn't matter. Are they going to have a good life together? Oh my gosh. You can fall in love, you can have love, but love and success in marriage are not the same thing at all. And they're not compatible. No wonder all the studies on religion and marriage, interfaith marriage, they've started since 1949. The most recent one was about a year and a half ago. In Europe and America, they all show when you have one religion in the marriage, meaning husband and wife share the religion, whether they're religious, observant, or not so much, but they share the religious identity, chances of happiness and success in marriage go up dramatically. No guarantees. There are Jews that divorce other Jews, no absolutes in life. But it's a huge advantage that people don't realize. We have a commonality. Obviously, there's many fewer problems. What religion we're going to be, what holidays we're going to celebrate, who our friends are going to be. People say, religion, is supposed to bind a couple together. Instead, it can tear them apart. The first reason I encourage people to marry in the same religion is because it's better for the marriages. Far fewer problems, argument, tension. Well, just give an example. I know I agreed that there wouldn't be a Christmas tree, but I was single. I was 25. I was in love. I'm a mother now. You can't hold me to that. That was my favorite memory growing up. Why do you get Hanukkah and I can't have Christmas? Like, it doesn't matter what I said 5 years ago. This is how I feel now. No wonder. You know what? I heard a story, I actually read this, that there was a non-Jewish man who married a Jewish woman, and he agreed to let the kids be raised as Jews. And he described it very beautifully. He said, I felt like a ship, like a boat. We're leaving port, going out to sea, and my wife and kids were on it, and I wasn't. Meaning they had this identity, and it wasn't me. I often have this realization when it comes to Israel, my home, that, I know people that are married to non-Jews, and their lives change when something happens in Israel. Because this guy I know, one of the last terrorist acts in Israel, so God forbid it happen again. So he's watching the news, he's concerned, his people, somebody just attacked his people. His wife doesn't care. There's bombings every day in Iraq. Afghanistan is a mess. In East Asia's got all kinds of problems. Look into Africa, you almost can't find a country that's not at war. No, Israel, big deal. That's not a marriage. That who I am is they don't understand who I am. First reason I encourage people to marry in the same religion. Better for the marriages. Fewer problems, tension, arguments, disagreements, and also much deeper. We're on the same page. Wherever we go, up, down, we're together. We understand each other. Second reason,